So I'm going to talk about vices, not the fun kind. Generally, three main ways to go. You go with basic suction cup vice or similar from Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight stuff is cheap. It's not going to hold up to abuse, but for light duty work, it's perfectly serviceable. If you're just going to be using it for holding locks while you're picking it, perfectly fine. Suction cup base is really nice because it holds things steady. The next route is spending a bit more on something like a PanaVise. I did with this one because I planned on using it for more than just picking. I do things like challenge locks, custom picks, even just grubbing locks. This is a grubbing jig for Euro cylinders, and I use the vise to push the rod in and pop the plugs out so that I can then grub it. Probably fine for this, but for holding things while I use a hacksaw on them or files, I wanted something a little more reliable. I think Harbor Freight stuff is like pop metal and whatever and can crack. And with the PanaVise, you have a few different choices, kind of like what's on here. Popular one is the 350, and that has 376 for the head, 300 for the base, and then the 312 for the base mount. That works really well for a lot of people. I didn't go that route because I wanted something that was very stationary. And the suction cup worked really well for that. Whereas the 312 base can slide around. You probably can rubberize the underside of it if it isn't already, and that would help reduce the slide. But when you're really going at it with a hacksaw, yeah, you want something really stable. So I went this route. If I was going to start over, what I would probably do is just get the 300 and the 376 and then do what I did here and bolt it down. The reason I say that is because the jaws on this, I'm not terribly happy with. On the 312, there's grooves cut into it. So if you're like working on something like pins, small rod, if I put something in and it's not very long, let's say it was only like that big, and I put it in here like this, if I squeeze down enough, this will pop right out. Because it's sticking up past the metal, the nylon will push back. Whereas where it's backed by the metal, it'll stay. But where it's not, it'll deform. And that means it creates an angle and then it'll pop violently like that. Yeah, not terribly happy with this. Whereas one with our grooves already cut into it, I'm assuming would be able to grip a bit better without that type of issue. While the suction cup did work really well, and if you're just going to be picking, I don't foresee any issues. But because I do so much filing and cutting, yeah, that's a bunch of stainless steel, brass, and sawdust all on there. And I had to just keep cleaning it over and over again. And that meant water got inside. It's only a couple months old and it's rusting. Yeah, I wouldn't go this route again. So what I did is pulled 3 screws out and drilled 3 holes in my table and then bolted it up from the top. It's not going anywhere. These two, I think the main difference is just the height of them, but they have ears coming out. Rather than having to put the bolts up through, you can put them through from the top, which may end up easier. Then there is the SmallRig. This is a really popular option. I think it's really good for locks. If you're just going to be picking, this is a really good route to go. This jaw opens up quite wide. It will hold this Medico, and Scandi oval is only a couple millimeters bigger than this. So I'm pretty sure this will hold a Scandi oval. And this is the smaller of the style jaw. You can get bigger if you really need it. But I think the small is going to be perfectly fine for most people because I don't imagine you needing a much bigger diameter than this. I think the Scandi oval is about as big as it gets. You can get different arms. Another popular option is to get 2 SmallRigs and then an arm similar to this. And then that's a really nice one if you're traveling. You can use one of the jaws to clamp to the end of your table and then the other one for your locks. And you can pretty much use it all over the place. One thing I want to point out, there are a couple different versions. You want to get one that has these serrations on the ball, because some of the earlier models had trouble where it wouldn't grip very well and slip a lot, whereas the serrations in the ball, what I did is similar to this, is I just drilled a hole through and then I bolted this in because I wanted this hard mounted as well. And the reason I have both is I found that while this worked well for locks, since I've been doing so much metal work on this, there's filings all over the place, and they'll get down in here, and I kind of don't want my locks too near that stuff. I do try to keep it clean, but it's nice just having another vise to segregate the work areas just a little bit. I created a universal lock holder, and it'll hold everything from something as small as a Goal S all the way out to the Medico. Let's just slip in like that. And I got two versions of this. There's ones with the rails kind of cut out for these styles of vices with the grips, and then there's some that are just flat if you have a vice that either doesn't have these or they're too wide for this version of it. It'll hold Euro cylinders, the really funky mortise and rim cylinders, or whatever this is. And I also have a version that's a little bit deeper. There's something else I was going to mention on the SmallRig, I thought. Yep, got a snap. Thanks for watching.